What is up, my YouTube friends? Welcome back to another explainer. So today, we're unlocking what I genuinely think is the ultimate cheat code to human communication. Have you ever just stopped to wonder how we actually communicate so effortlessly? I mean, we literally just open our mouths and these incredibly complex, nuanced ideas come pouring out. But beneath the surface of all that everyday conversation, there's this massive, invisible structural hub making the whole shebang happen. We're going to explore a concept today that isn't just about words. It is the living, breathing root system of human language itself. So, get ready to meet the linguistic weaver.
At the core of this explainer is a concept called morphology. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Morphology sounds like a dry, dusty academic term, right? But seriously, throw that idea right out the window. Morphology is simply the study of the internal structure of words and the rules by which they're formed. It absolutely doesn't exist in a vacuum. You've kind of got to think of morphology as this living root system that connects and nourishes completely different branches of human knowledge. It's the central hub that takes raw sound and weaves it into complex meaning, extending out into our history, our psychology, and even our society.
Okay, let's dive into this and map out our progression for today. We're going to level up through three distinct interfaces of the linguistic weaver. First up, sound and structure. Next, meaning and history. And finally, brains in society.
Let's kick things off with Level 1, Sound and Structure, specifically the phonology and syntax interfaces. In this first stage, words literally shape-shift to match the specific physical and structural vibes of a sentence. It's where the raw, physical material of speech meets the architectural blueprint of grammar. At its most foundational level, morphology is completely intertwined with phonology, which, if you don't know, is just the study of speech sounds. We call this intersection morphophonology. It's basically the space where the physical, phonetic shape of a piece of a word changes entirely on its environment. You see, building words isn't just some abstract rule-making game. It is strictly bound by the physical constraints and possibilities of human speech sounds. Because let's face it, your mouth can only do so many things in quick succession.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when those physical constraints kick in. Take a look at everyday pluralization rules in English. If you have more than one cat, you add an S, and it makes the sharp S sound, cats. But if you have more than one dog, you still add an S, but it magically turns into this buzzing Z sound, dogs. Why? Well, because the G in dog naturally vibrates your vocal cords, which physically forces the S to vibrate too. So the morphological requirement to make the word plural is completely governed by the phonological rule of voicing assimilation. The word literally alters its physical sound to match the vibe of the root word. Crazy, right?
But words don't just adapt to sound. They've got to fit together to form whole sentences. If morphology builds words, syntax builds sentences. And the space where they overlap is this blurred boundary known as morphosyntax. Think of syntax as the master architect, dictating the empty slots in a sentence, while morphology provides the correctly shaped key to unlock and fill those slots perfectly. In modern terms, morphology is basically a word just understanding the assignment and changing its shape to do exactly what the sentence needs it to do.
Which brings us to the power of inflection. In so many languages around the world, a word absolutely must change its physical form to indicate its role in a sentence, whether that's case, number, or gender. For example, in Latin or German, the very ending of a noun shifts depending on whether it's acting as the subject of the sentence or the object being acted upon. These morphological endings are the vital structural bricks supporting the entire cathedral of the sentence. Without the right brick, the whole structure just collapses.
All right, now that we've laid that structural foundation, let's level up to Level 2, meaning and history. We're looking at the semantics and etymology interfaces. Let's move to and see how this builds our ability to generate meaning, specifically through something called derivational morphology. Semantics deals with the what of meaning, but morphology deals with the how. Look at how we can stack morphological layers to completely transform the dimension of a concept. We start with pure, which is an adjective describing a state. Add a suffix and boom, it becomes purify, an action, a verb. Add another layer and it becomes purification, a noun representing the entire process. We are literally building brand new realities just by snapping these morphological Lego bricks together.
But wait, it gets even more creative when we look at compounding. This is the poetic merging of two entirely distinct ideas into one unified concept. Think of beautiful words like sunflower or moonlight. Morphology allows our language to infinitely expand its vocabulary without ever needing to invent entirely new, random roots for every single new thing we encounter. It's an insanely efficient, beautiful system of recycling and recombining.
And because we reuse and adapt these forms, morphology acts as a diachronic timeline, basically a historical fossil record. We can trace the ancient origins of Greek and Latin roots that established core meanings thousands of years ago. Over centuries, we can watch how morphological structures continuously evolve, tracing the movement and history of the people who actually speak the language. In the modern era, we can even see simplification happening, like how English eventually lost most of those complex case endings that we actually still see in German today. Words carry the literal DNA of human history.
And here is the literal cheat code I promised you at the start. Once you understand etymology and these morphological roots, you can decode almost anything. Take our topic today, for example, morphology. The Greek root morph means shape, and the suffix ology means the study of. Put them together, and it's the study of shape. Knowing these specific historical roots unlocks the meaning behind thousands of complex scientific disciplines and vocabulary words. You aren't just memorizing definitions anymore, you are actually reading the underlying code of the language.
Let's power up to our final stage, Level 3, Brains and Society, the psycholinguistics and sociolinguistics interfaces. So here's the ultimate psycholinguistics question for you. How does the human brain actually process and store all these words? Do we store a word like walked in our brain as one single memorized unit? Or does our brain store the root walk and the suffix "ed totally separately and then assemble them on the fly? Well, research suggests our brains are highly efficient morphological processors. We literally break down complex words into their constituent parts in mere milliseconds. Your brain is running this complex morphological software constantly in real time without you even having to try.
And the best proof that our brains are hardwired for this software actually comes from children. Think about language acquisition. Kids do not learn words in isolation. They learn deep morphological patterns. When a toddler drops some serious main character energy and confidently declares, "I good to the park," they're actually proving how smart they are. Sure, they haven't mastered the irregular exception went yet, but they have perfectly understood and applied the underlying morphological rule for creating the past tense. They are intuitive linguistic weavers from day one.
Beyond our individual brains, morphology scales way up to reflect our entire society. In sociolinguistics, we see how morphological markers reflect social hierarchies and cultural belonging. For example, in languages like Japanese or Urdu, using honorifics requires morphological changes in the verbs and nouns themselves, basically calculating and indicating the level of respect or social distance between the speakers. And even within English, dialectal variations, like using standard versus non-standard plurals, well, those aren't errors at all. They serve as deeply ingrained markers of belonging and cultural identity. The word structures we use signal exactly what community we belong to.
So the crucial point is this: morphology is not just a vocabulary list. It is the linguistic weaver. It takes the raw threads of sound from phonology. It weaves them into rich, meaningful patterns through semantics. It expertly tailors those patterns to fit the garment of the sentence through syntax. And every single piece of that fabric carries the deep, historical timeline of the thread itself through etymology. All these levels weave together to form the massive, interconnected structural hub of human communication.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Words aren't just symbols on a page or random sounds vibrating in the air. They are incredibly complex structures mapping our reality, our history, and our society. So what invisible cheat codes and hidden rules are you unconsciously weaving every single time you speak? Next time you have a conversation, pay attention to the architectural masterpiece you're building in real time.
I really hope this explainer completely leveled up your understanding of how language actually works. My YouTube friends, if you found this deep dive into the linguistic weaver as fascinating as I did, be sure to hit that like button, share this with a fellow curious mind, and subscribe so we can keep exploring the amazing structures of our world together. Also, drop a comment down below with your absolute favorite linguistic cheat code or interesting word origin that you know. Thanks so much for learning with me, and I will see you in the next explainer.